Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. Thank you all so much for taking the time to chime in the comments last week to talk about how I should implement these different reviews into this stuff. And I read every single comment, I took them all seriously, and luckily I think I'm mostly on the right track. I feel like the only one I kind of messed up was that gaming headset thing that I reviewed. Could have probably been on the main channel because, I mean, how many of us have just streamed games or just playing online with your friends and stuff like that that would probably have applied? And I don't know, maybe I'll still re-release it just as a short, just to expose it to more people. But I think I mostly got everything else on track, and I'm going to make mistakes. So please let me know when I do, and I'll try to get better. As always, I am only human, so when I'm called out for mistakes in a respectful way, I tend to listen a lot clearer than when there's just being thrown at me with profanity and mockery and stuff like that. I still try really hard to listen to those as well, but I just, like I said last week, I want to do what's right for all of us, and I want to make sure to show the respect to you all, because you're the one who's keeping all this going. So anyway, I'll stop rambling. I just wanted to sincerely say thank you. If you want to subscribe to the other channel, fine. If not, I totally get it. A lot of people don't want more stuff cluttering up their YouTube feed. Totally understandable. But enough of that. Let's jump in and see what's been going on in the past week. Starting us out is just a heads up that Tendak converter I talked about in the modern HDMI on old CRTs video is back in stock. That was very unfortunate that I had spent months testing these adapters, and a day before I launched the video publicly, the best one went out of stock, and then they're all back now. So I put up like a social media video on the other day, just kind of letting everybody know, which was half a mistake because anybody who didn't see the main video walked away from that little 1-minute teaser of like, well, what's this for? Why would you need it? So if you haven't seen it, please watch the original video and just know that the one that I had said was the best that I had tested is now back in stock at Amazon, ready to go. If you want to watch the little teaser thing just showing the unboxing and stuff, cool, but really you don't need to. The original video is the only one that actually matters in this scenario, and I just wanted to let everybody know it's back. And I also wanted to thank people who had shouted out other solutions, and there's one more new from Amazon one on the way that if it's good, hopefully I'll have a review out of that in a week or so. And also thanks to everybody who talked about the stuff that you can get on eBay, but that's not something that I really want to get into because I know exactly what's going to happen. If there are a few cheap ones left, as soon as everybody starts to buy them, the prices are gonna get jacked up, and then you're not gonna be able to find them anymore. So doing a video on that would just make people upset, rightfully so. So I'm sticking to new solutions that are cheap, that people could use to just get started. Once again, if you want the deep dive stuff, check out Marco's videos. They're the best. And I'll be doing a little bit of that too, but I think for the most part, for the short term, I'm just going to be sticking on the cheaper solutions because I think that really is a great gateway drug into the retro stuff that we all do, if you will. So links in the description for that video and all of the adapters that I talked about. So a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Roger, aka Nemesis, who had completely reverse engineered the Pioneer LaserActive and PAC modules, as well as reverse engineered the format that was on the Laserdiscs with the concurrent streams that allowed things like games to be put on Laserdiscs. And at the time, he had mentioned he was working on the NEC PAC support, and now it's released. You could just play that stuff through the Ares emulator. And it was pretty awesome to see. I had downloaded one of them, which was over 60 gigabytes. And once again, if you want to know the details as to why, please check out the interview. But the short version is there has to be concurrent uncompressed streams all inside the laser discs that need to be accessed to play these games. So in order to get the file size down, somebody would either have to need to figure out a way to extract all of them and compress them individually, and then put them in a format that could be read by LaserActive emulation, or invent a new type of compression that could do that all in the same container. So for the foreseeable future, there's going to be giant files that you need to play off of an SSD, but now you could just download the BIOS files, download the NEC LaserActive games, and just try them on normal emulation. And hopefully I could do a live stream with this at some point in the future. I messed with the Ares emulator and both the Sega and NEC packs, and it was awesome. It was really cool to be able to finally experience that. And of course, if I did it on stream, I would want to do something like try to get it onto a CRT and stream it so I could see it the way you would probably expect to see it. I don't know. I love messing around with stuff like this. So as soon as I have some extra time, and I'm able to download a bunch of 60 gigabyte games, I'll do a fun live stream and hanging out with people, just kind of going through some of these. But you could try them right now for yourself for free using the Ares emulator. And I believe you still have to use the nightly build of Ares to play the NEC pack, but that's linked right here. And then, of course, when it's the next main release, it'll just be integrated right into that. So thanks to Roger for doing all this. Also, thanks to everybody who works on Ares for really helping out with this stuff and getting it out to people immediately. And if you want to hear directly from Roger, please check out that interview we did. It's as a video, but just like with every interview I do, it's available anywhere you find podcasts. Just search for RetroRGB Nemesis. Next up, the developer Kondo Wantu has been patching a bunch of SNES games for Rumble support using the code released by Randy Linden and Limited Run Games that allows you to do this. The open source code was applied to a bunch of different games via Kondo and the help of some other people as well, and a lot of effort was put into these. Super Mario World itself had over 30 different Rumble tables applied in order to have a really immersive experience. So what that kind of means is that when you're playing, often you won't even know the Rumble's there. It's just adding to the experience. And then if you just turned it off, you would immediately feel like something's missing. Kind of exactly like the Philips Hue lighting that I keep talking about, that so many people keep mocking me for, that I truly stand by. I think the way these are done, it adds to it in a way that's not distracting, because it would be easy to take this code and just make the controller shake violently every time you bump into something, but that's not what Kondo's been doing. All of the Rumble is applied properly to the different scenarios, and it just adds to the experience. So if you have the ability to try it, I definitely suggest just giving it a try. All you need is a controller that supports Rumble, and you could do it via Mister or either the Messen or Ares emulators, and just enable it, and that's all you would need. You will be able to use original hardware for this once the Rumble controller is released, I believe early next year, the same Doom controller that was designed for Doom. And yeah, I mean, this is just really awesome stuff. And you know, I've been following Kondo ever since Ron, the Handlebar Gamer, told me about the Star Fox. I don't want to say patch, I want to say full remake. The full name of it's Star Fox Exploration Showcase, or Star Fox EF, and it looks really cool. And I keep meaning to put time aside to live stream it, but you know, life often gets in the way of this stuff. So who knows? Maybe I could do a live stream with Kondo one time, playing Star Fox, and then kind of going through some of these Rumble patches and talking about, you know, how it is. The Rumble patch live streams would me mostly be explaining what it's like, so I think those you should really just try on your own. Any Rumble supported controller hooked up to your PC would work with Ares, but I do want to show off Star Fox because that was really awesome. So thanks very much to Kondo for doing these. The patches are free, but please consider supporting on Patreon if you love this stuff, just so we could enable more of these things to happen. And I'll keep updating people as necessary. I definitely don't like to be the rush out and post first type, especially when it comes to stuff like this, where there's no time urgency, but also I want to give the developers time to release it, to just kind of go through some bug fixes with people. I think it's kind of a little more respectful to do it that way. If I'm wrong, especially you, Kondo, let me know if you think I'm wrong about that. But I kind of like these things to be released and sat on for at least a couple of days or something, and then I like to talk about it. So the average user gets something that just works, and the beta test nerds like myself probably already know it exists. So anyway, thanks to Kondo, thanks to Randy, of course, for doing this as well, and I'm looking forward to playing basically all of them just to see what it's like. The developer Sega RPG Fan, or Joe, just released Tizen Netplay to public beta, which is a way to essentially play Dreamcast serial link cable games over the internet. And this is something that's really interesting because I didn't even know Dreamcast had a serial cable that would allow you to connect two together for head-to-head local play until I had done it myself in New York. I did a live stream with Destiny where she brought a Dreamcast over and we played a bunch of these games head-to-head, and it was absolutely awesome. And some of the games are obviously better than others, but it was just a really cool experience. And it differs from the online play. Some of the games worked differently. Not all of the modes were implemented into the online play as they were into the serial cable play. So now, thanks to Joe and a bunch of creative hardware, you're able to actually play these games online with friends as if you were locally together. And this is done by a bunch of different things, including the software itself, but also you could use either the DreamPi or you could connect it to your PC. You're going to need some UART cables. The post here has all of the details that you need, but this was a really interesting story. Definitely check out Gregory's post if you want the details on this, but essentially the biggest hurdle was documenting the serial baud rates that the game used, but Joe doesn't have a logic analyzer, so they had to do it all via trial and error, and some of the baud rates are non-standard, so that sounds tedious. Funny enough, there was an issue that had happened where Joe found a coding error, and the error led to the discovery, which ended up getting this all working. So any of my fellow development nerds, whether it's hardware or software, that probably hit home because we've all been there before. So that's kind of a fun little thing. I'm sure you're all remembering when that happened to you. Sometimes mistakes are good when it comes to development and stuff like that. So yeah, this is pretty fun and exciting. If you have a DreamPi, you could get this working with some custom cabling. There are some people out there who are talking about making cables to sell that are all pre-done. All you would need to do is plug it in. And there's obviously a heck of a lot more to it all, but definitely check out the post if you're interested. And this just seems really fun. This seems like something that is worth trying out if you're into Dreamcast games or if you're just, want to try some of these fun and weird experiences of the 90s that obviously, nowadays a ton of games have just standard Netplay built in, but being able to do it with original hardware, especially over the internet like this, was neat. So check out the post for more info, and thanks to Joe for making this happen. I just reviewed a monitor that's less than $150, runs at 1080p 240 hertz, and is compatible with a bunch of retro stuff. So if you're somebody that wants to do high frame rate gaming via a PC, or I guess even a modern console on the cheap, and you also want something that's compatible with retro, this is awesome. If you want a really high quality monitor, this is not for you. It is awesome in the context of $150. And there's a bunch more to talk about, but if that's all you care about, please skip to the next section. But I guess I'll give the backstory because that could be relevant in a lot of people's minds. If you're hearing 240 hertz and retro, you might be thinking what I was thinking. So here's the whole backstory. I wanted to test BFI and especially the Blurbusters Beam Emulation BFI on a cheap LCD panel. And I found the cheapest possible one I could find. It ended up having a curved screen, which I loved that, by the way. None of my desktop displays have ever been curved screen. I only have the curved OLED TV from a decade ago. And I think the curvature part of it, the next time I buy like a 4K monitor for my main setup, it's going to be curved. I loved that part of it. But I tried to do any of the BFI stuff, and I just don't think any LCD display is really going to be able to take advantage of all of the benefits of BFI unless it's built into the display itself. Now, I'm not the expert on this. Mark from Blurbusters is. I annoy Mark all the time. He hasn't gotten back to me for the last couple of questions, and I don't blame him. I sent him walls of text asking for his free help, so I'll get around to double checking. But I think basically when it comes to forcing BFI on LCDs, well, forcing BFI externally on any display is never going to work the same as when it's controlled from the display itself. But you could get some really cool results on OLEDs, but not so much LCDs, because you could actually damage the panels if you don't do it in a specific way. So if you, like for the RetroTink 4K, if you leave LCD saver on, you could do it, but then it kind of changes modes in order to make sure it doesn't burn in anything on the monitor, and it just wasn't a great experience overall. I hope I'm wrong. I really would love to come back to you a couple of months from now and apologize and teach you about a great way to take advantage of it. But as of now, with a PC, with the RetroTink 4K, it doesn't really matter. On an LCD, just don't expect the best results. But I already spent a ton of time testing this thing, so that's why I wanted to tell you all about it, because to go back to what I said at the beginning, if you're somebody that's like, okay, I have a video card that could handle 1080p 240, or I guess even 1080p 120, or I guess modern consoles, and you just want a cheap monitor to start. Maybe you're going to eventually save up for an amazing OLED like the one that I'm still borrowing. Shout out to Destiny for letting me keep this for like 6 months to test it. Maybe you want to step in with this one. And then, months later when you save up for the good one, now you have a spare, a second monitor, whatever you want to do with it. I think it's great. However, if you just want something cheap for retro, I don't think I would go with this one. I would just kind of look for any 60 hertz one. And that's comes down to the way the lag works on these things. Basically, if you run it at its native refresh rate, or in this case, 120 or 240 hertz, it's got less than 2 milliseconds of latency. But if you run it at 60 hertz, or I guess 50 as well, it jumps up to about 11, give or take. 11 milliseconds of latency is not bad at all. And if you're buying this for modern and retro, totally fine. Just don't even worry about latency in your mind. Know that it's a cheap LCD panel, but whatever. But if you're going to be spending $150 and you just want it for retro, get one that's native 1080p, or I guess even 1440p at 60 hertz, and get the ones that are 2 or 3 milliseconds lag and be done with it. So that's why I kind of wanted to talk this out for a minute, even though you might think, why are you wasting your time talking about a $150 cheap monitor? I think there's absolutely use cases for this. I totally think that some people listening are going to pick it up for the reasons I said, and probably ones I'm not even thinking of. But I also wanted to just let everybody know, if you're thinking about going deep in BFI on cheap LCD panels, don't unless you really understand that you're going to be spending a ton of time and it might not even work at all. You might want to just do that on an OLED. Now, what I would really, really, really want is a 1440p to 120 hertz or higher OLED monitor to test for this and a couple of other things. I have that 4K one here that does 240 and 480, but I really needed that one, the 1440p OLED, at higher than 120 hertz or higher, to finish some testing that I want to do. So if anybody's local to the area and, or I guess wouldn't mind shipping it, I could buy it, do the testing, and then ship it to you when I'm done if it's something you wanted to buy. Or more importantly, if you know stores or have contacts that would let me borrow this stuff. I can't afford to just buy a bunch of monitors, and I don't ever want to be the person that buys it, reviews it, and returns it. I mean, I've done that before, but only when I was returning it for legitimate reasons. So yeah, if anybody knows a way to help out, and I'll probably ask 1 or 2 more times in the next couple of weeks, because I am working on some cool display focused stuff. And, this one is great if you just want a budget thing to start out. But if you're saving up your money for a good one, maybe hold off, because I have been testing a couple of others that I want to talk about. My Life in Gaming just released an awesome video that talks about the RetroTink 4K Pro's enhanced S-Video, as well as an awesome mod from Zaxor for TurboGrafx consoles and PC Engine that gets you excellent S-Video out with the original proper color palette. And I think this was the perfect video that links both of those together, because while yes, you can get a much sharper picture via the N64, I think a lot of people like adding CRT emulation filters to that to kind of make those early 3D graphics blend in a little better as they did on a CRT. But with sharp 2D pixels like you'll find on PC Engine TurboGrafx games, I think this is the perfect explanation of what enhanced video is, exactly how it's able to enhance S-Video, but also the perfect use case for it. Because the PC Engine and TurboGrafx consoles generate a color palette via composite and S-Video with the mod that is very clearly how the developers were looking at the games when they designed them. My Life in Gaming shows a couple of examples in here that exactly clarify what I'm talking about. But when you switch to RGB mods, you don't get the exact correct color palette. Sometimes it doesn't matter, sometimes it does. And yes, of course, you could do this on a Mister, you could just use composite video. I think the Terra Onion SSDS3 -5x2, whatever that one is, I think the correct color palette comes out of the HDMI port, but not RGB from the RGB jack. So this really, using Zaxor's Turbo Nanza mod and the RetroTink 4K Pro, is a way to get basically RGB-like video quality with the correct color palette. And even if you don't really care about that, this video is such a great example of how both of those things work that I just think it's a must watch for all of us. And yeah, I know My Life in Gaming are friends of mine, so of course I like the video, but anybody who's been following us for a long time knows that we're all our harshest critics. So I would tell you if there was something wrong with it, but there isn't. This is an awesome video. Mark summarized it great in the post written here. So if you want, still visual examples, which by the way, I really appreciate that My Life in Gaming does this as well, because there's so many times that I'll watch anybody's good deep dive video and I'll be wondering about comparisons. So having a post that you could go back to and click on still shots, especially stuff where you could see normal and enhanced video all right next to each other like that, I think it's just really handy and really appreciated. So, thank you very much for them doing that. And you could just do stuff like I'm doing right now, and you could go back and forth to see how much of a difference this stuff all makes. So thanks again to My Life in Gaming for doing this. And of course, thanks to Zaxor for making the mod and Mike Chi for adding enhanced S video. All very cool stuff, and this is definitely a must-watch for retro fans because you get to learn about a lot of different things in one relatively short video. I just did an interview with Steve, better known as Cosam in the retro scene, who is the person who reverse engineered a bunch of different retro motherboards, including the Sega Neptune motherboard. And it was awesome just meeting him and finally and having a full conversation with him and talking about all of his awesome accomplishments and going deep on both the Neptune board as well as just speculating about what other weird things like this could be possible in the future. It wasn't too long of an interview and we didn't get too deeply technical, so I think this one would be something that anybody who's interested in this stuff would enjoy listening to. And as always, they're available as a video or just everywhere you find podcasts. Just search for RetroRGB Cosam. But yeah, this was awesome. I had a lot of fun and a big fan of his work, so it was very cool to be able to have this conversation. And also, if you want to know exactly what the Neptune is and how it came about and how this mod using Cosam's board is able to be used, Tito from Macho Nacho Productions did a really awesome video about it. And then I did a couple of deep dive live stream testing with all of this stuff. And I just wanted to clarify again, like I said in the interview, Master System games do work. They don't through an original 32X, but they do on the Neptune board. That's one that people keep getting wrong, and I try to be clear about it, but I get it, because you've been hearing for years Master System doesn't work through a 32X, but it will work through this. And the other thing that would not work through an original 32X was Virtua Racing, the Genesis version, but it does work on this. Shout out to RG Beater for reminding me about that, or actually just letting me know. I didn't even realize that that was a thing that could be done. But yes, I pulled out the Neptune board, which I'm still borrowing, and I was able to plug in original Genesis Virtua Racing and play a couple rounds, and it just worked perfectly. So awesome. Just another bonus for that very, very cool board. So yeah, please check out the interview if you're interested. And thanks again to Steve for doing having a chat with me and doing all this awesome work. Consoles for You is now selling a USB charge adapter for PlayStation 3 controllers. Because for some insane reason, Sony made it that you can't just plug in any USB charger into a PlayStation 3 controller. You have to either leave it connected directly to the PlayStation 3 or to devices that have specific code added to them that basically spoofs the PS3. And while, yes, of course, you can get a cheap charging dock off of Amazon, and I even linked to one if you're interested, I personally never wanted to leave my controllers plugged into a dock. I certainly didn't want to leave them, kind of plugged in, balancing on that small USB port. I just like to leave my controllers in a box, and then when I get ready to play, I'll plug them into USB for a couple of minutes as I'm setting up, let it charge, and then start playing. And I would normally do that with the PS3, but I think I would really prefer the adapters from Consoles for You to do it, both to support retro and, indie creators, but also I just think it's a better overall workflow for me. I totally get it. Maybe you want to leave these things on a dock and display them on your shelf. Maybe you just prefer it that way. That's fine. There's a bunch of different right ways to go about this, but I just know that Consoles for You makes quality stuff that I don't have to worry about a shoddy USB circuit. And I just would love to leave it in a drawer, grab my controller, plug it in, go set up my stuff, come back a couple minutes later, and the controller is probably charged enough to play some games on. So if you're interested, the price is between $20 and $40 depending on where you live, because shipping sucks now. But I think everybody listening to this understands why. So yeah, check it out, see if you want it. Once again, I totally understand if you'd rather just buy the cheapest stuff you could find off of Amazon, which is why I linked to it. There's obviously a purpose for the cheap stuff too, but I also think a lot of us listening might understand the workflow that I kind of talked about and prefer this one. So links to both are in the description. Thanks to Jan for making this stuff. And yeah, this is definitely how I would prefer to charge my PS3 controllers. A couple of super quick hardware reviews. The first is a USB 3.2 CF Express card reader that also does every other format from the old Sony memory cards to SD and micro SD that runs at true 10 gigabit per second speed. So if you just need a basic one and you don't need anything fancy, I've been using this cheap one for years. It is like less than 10 bucks. I linked to that one, just get the cheap one. But if you need speed from your memory cards, especially modern ones like CF Express, this is the one to buy. Just make sure to use the cable it comes with, because like with all high-speed USB, if you switch out cables, you might lose the speed. But less than 2-minute video if you're interested in it. Links are right here. And this is something that might help creators that are transferring big files off of modern cameras. One more high-speed USB device. This is an external NVMe enclosure that runs at true 20 gigabit per second speeds. And it's expensive. So much like the one I just talked about, if you're just looking for a cheap external enclosure that runs at basic USB speeds, do not buy this one. However, if you're somebody like me that needs external high-speed data transfer sometimes for the crazy testing, or maybe you just do a lot of backups, or maybe you have a laptop with a small hard drive, so you just want to always keep a fast data drive plugged in when you're at home, this is absolutely one to consider. It runs at true USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 speeds. I hate the USB standards, the dumbest naming conventions ever, but basically true 20 gigabit per second speeds, as long as you use a shorter cable into a port that supports it. So the PC that I'm currently using maxes out at 10 gigabit per second, but I absolutely had a motherboard when I first got it that ran at true 20 gigabit per second speeds. And also, if you plug it into another hub or if you use a longer cable, that speed is going to drop, which is just always the case with all high-speed devices. So I think this one came with a cable. It's been so long. I've been using this for years, which is kind of why I want to do a lot of these short reviews, because some of the stuff that I'm reviewing, I stand by of years worth of constant, at least weekly, but sometimes daily use. So that's the other reason I really want to get these shorter reviews out to all of you, because I could stand by and say that this one works totally great. Check out the 1.5-minute video for all of the details. But yeah, if you're looking for speed, this is it. If you're looking for a cheap NVMe hard drive enclosure, this is not it. Well, that's it for this time. Just a heads up, I'm going to still keep listing stuff on the eBay store, just other older things that I'm getting rid of that I don't need anymore. And I'd put a few things up, but I kind of slowed down because I keep hitting a bunch of different projects. Because as usual, my crazy ADHD brain is bouncing around like a ping pong ball, working on a whole bunch of different things. But I'll leave a link in case anybody's interested. There's some junk that a bunch of people might be interested in on there. And as always, thank you to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in absolutely any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thank you again so much, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.